Dr Bami Bastani have been appointed a new board member and chairman of Sivers Semiconductors. But not only that, he is also joining me in the virtual studio from the US West Coast. Hello, welcome and congratulations, Mr. Bastani.
Hey, Matthias, thank you and glad to be here.
Happy to have you, and you have an extensive experience from the industry. Could you introduce yourself and your background to our viewers?
Sure, let me start from the beginning with a PhD in microelectronics from the Ohio State University. And then I joined Intel right away out of college as one of the senior device guys in charge of within the technology development department, TD, which is a very good introduction to the industry. Of course, I have 43 years roughly experience in the industry, which means when I joined Intel, it was 1980. I always say my first project was 64K DRAM, not meg, not gig, not tera, K DRAM. So I have seen the evolution of this industry over the last 40 plus years. And so that was the beginning. I moved up into technology development. I was head of the TD and National Semiconductor later on. Moved into the business side and headed the memories and embedded systems. Then moved on to be, after a couple of transitions, to be the CEO of a public company called Anadigix, which is specialized in RF. Now, if I put things in perspective, you have digital world, you have analog world, you have the RF world. It gets more complicated as you move because the digital, everything is building blocks. RF is experience. And we're going to talk about Sivers as well. We move from RF to photonics, which is the new wave. It's even get more complicated where the experience and things are not just in libraries that you could use. Anyhow, I ran Anadigix for 10 years as a CEO. When I joined it was at a low point in its market cap of roughly about 70 million. Within 2 years, it was $3 billion US. These are all US dollars. Of course, we had the benefit of the bubble at that time. If you remember, it was the dot-com era. We went through a very strong recession in tech, and the market cap went up back to roughly about $1.4 billion thereafter. That's where I brought in the major transition from general management into being CEO. And then let me just pause in between that and get to my last position, which was a senior VP at Global Foundries. Global Foundries is a very specialty foundry where you work very hand in glove with customers, and it had the largest ever IPO in the semiconductor industry in October of 2021 at 26 billion. Prior to that, it was Infineon, which was like 21 billion. So that kind of sums it up. And then, of course, I retired in 2023, and Sivers was one of the people that approached me to be on their board, and here we are.
Thank you so much, and what a fantastic journey. And after all these years at these companies and lastly at Global Foundries and on the US market, how will Sivers Semiconductors benefit from your chairmanship?
It is just in the sweet spot of what's happening. When you look at the mega trends, you know, we have AI that we have heard a lot about, and then there's a tremendous amount of momentum behind that. Sivers is well placed, and we talk more about that. And the other side is in area of the millimeter wave, and which we have pivoted the company into SATCOM as that market develops. So it is in the sweet spot of what's happening, and it's an area that I have had experience in both areas within my prior companies and people that I've worked with.
Okay, and while we're at it, where is the development going, and how well positioned is Sivers Semiconductors to help and maybe even lead it?
So let's talk about photonics first. And within photonics, one area of focus is going to be AI. What does AI stress? AI is going to stress the data centers, the power consumption in the data centers, and then the amount of copper which is running inside these data centers. Sivers' very differentiated, unique expertise with lasers, indium phosphide lasers, allows companies like IR Labs that you have heard a lot in the news, which is having investments from Intel, NVIDIA, and others, because again, a bright spot here, a unicorn in the space, basically, allows to replace those copper lines with photons, which gives you like 10x or more in terms of power reduction and efficiency, and then many other attributes that once you get to speeds like 800 gigabits, copper cannot handle, and the data center power. So it is an essential element in realization of AI in your data center. The other area is, for example, is in the sensing, optical sensing. Again, Sivers is very well positioned in terms with its laser technology. By the way, the center of excellence for that is in Glasgow. The good thing is that Sivers has got their own pilot line. You can get about 10, 20, 30, 40,000, depending on how many lambdas, how many number of lasers you need, and a 4-inch wafer. So very high leverage, very high expertise, very well positioned. Of course, this is the market, just like IR Labs, when you look at it, it's in development. So you're well positioned in this mega trend. The second area is, of course, is the area of wireless into millimeter waves. We pretty much have saturated what we call the sub-6 and sub-8 gigahertz frequencies. Now, the idea behind the millimeter wave was to unroll a couple of years ago. However, new bands were released, and that was delayed. That's why we have pivoted, and why Sivers have pivoted using that millimeter wave technology into SATCOM, which you have seen press releases with Allspace, with Thorium, and others. Very uniquely positioned. Again, these are areas where the markets are developing in terms of democratization of internet worldwide, for example, or military applications, whichever you look at it. Sivers differentiation comes through being able to, for example, handle multiple satellites at the same time, regardless of what orbit they are. And so differentiated and well positioned in what's to come and is coming.
Okay, thank you. And what is your view on the markets for the two business areas, photonic and wireless?
Very promising. I can say very shortly, very promising. Now, as any developing market, there's always a timing of market adoption, which is happening, by the way, and after market adoption into production ramp. And that's the part that we are positioned with Sivers, with multiple customers, over 60 customers, literally, some large, some small. So when you look at from a design win and design in, the company is richly positioned. It depends on how fast those applications in those customers, whether it's AI related, whether it's sensing related, SATCOM, and millimeter wave in other applications such as fixed wireless or such as automotive radar or other radar application, go up into volume productions. We're in that earliest stage and inflection point, and I'm sure everybody says, so when is it going to kick up? Where is that? That's going to come from the market. What we can do is position for that success story.
Yeah, and to get ready for that, volume for photonics will grow heavily in the future. You are fabulous in wireless, and how does the plans go for securing bigger volume production for photonics?
So in the photonics, like I said, there is tremendous leverage, number one, in the asset that we have. Now in photonics, although it is a semiconductor manufacturing, your geometries when you're dealing with lasers are not those very small nanometers. They're much larger geometries. It's lasers, it shoots light, right? And so in terms of investments to increase capacity, it's minimal. It's measured in, $2, $3, $4, $5 million range. It's not like the, big numbers that you hear. So step number one, unique capability that we have, and we can easily expand it, bring the revenue out of that division north of 100, maybe up to 200 million US dollars. And number two, always have an asset-light strategy, which is a hybrid of ability to do inside in a differentiated way. Remember, process flows are also part of the trade secrets. And then we are in conversation and have had those conversations with a couple of foundries which specialize in 3.5s to be able to ramp in that once that kick happens in the inflection point. And of course, as you said, on the millimeter wave, we are completely fabless. It is a state of the art, and we're very proud to say we're one of the global foundries partners in that, which specializes in these areas. So we're well positioned in terms of the high volume demand in both sides.
Okay. And if we move on to financials, you decided recently to take out a loan of 50 million Swedish kronas. What is the purpose of that capital?
Well, the purpose of capital is always working capital, because as you invest in your R&D, as you develop new chips, although the good thing about Sivers is that, for example, you can leverage what you develop in the area of satellite easily to fixed wireless. The building blocks are the same, the IP is the same. There's variants of that. Or as you custom to each of our customers in the AI, for example, they have their own unique approaches. Again, you have existing IP and capabilities that you apply toward that. So we take it from there, basically.
Okay. And for 2023, Sivers made an outlook for the year on revenue and EBITDA. Will we see this also for 2024? And if yes, when will the board share this?
Well, company has a bright future. I mean, you can see how excited I am about it. And of course, the management team and the board is very excited about it too. It's on a very great path for the future. Our preference is just not to go and say this quarter, that quarter, that quarter. As many companies don't do that either. Because when you're in this development phase, you could miss the mark. And yet it's a timing issue. In general, for example, we have seen 5G being pushed out, deployment by about a year here and there. We have seen AI from a transition from copper wire, which is generally 400 gigabits driven, to 800 gigabits. It's going through its maturity. You can watch like IR Labs as a good proxy to that. So it makes it a little bit difficult to come and just do that. Although I think we have good analysts out there that we work with them, and they would be modeling, as we progress. However, we have pivoted to satellite. That's important as the revenue, and we have several announcements with Alospace and Thorium. We have working close relationship with the leaders of the AI, as we have talked about IR Labs, for example, in several, and we just work it with our analysts, and then we go forward that way. That's the best way.
Yeah, thank you. And there has been some sales of shares by some of your main owners. Will we see buying from insiders? Could you elaborate a bit on this?
Well, first of all, I want to let everybody know that I own 100,000 shares of Sivers myself, and I'll be more than glad to add more to it. I think we are at a point that we're valued higher than we should be valued higher than what the market is doing, and so there at times there's restrictions in terms of the blackout periods, in terms of the conversations the company has with other companies, things like that. So mindful of those, I would say I am one of the fans of the company myself, and sometimes I cannot speak about why somebody else has sold. But sometimes they have to pay their management fee. Sometimes they have got a threshold that if it gets below that, they have to sell. So there's other dynamics going that can force some of those kind of things. But as far as I'm concerned, I am very happy to be part of this company and be very happy to be a small shareholder and have a skin in the game.
Bami Bastani, thank you so much. That was all my questions for you today. I'm really looking forward in following Sivers with you on board.
And thank you, Matthias. Very pleased to be talking to you and having this session. Take care.
Thank you.